Hello everybody, today is the day and we are gonna get, let's just say, nice and nerdy. Okay guys, if you are new to my channel or if you're returning, you know the drill, but my name is Katie and on this channel is all about college life, the life of a pre-med student, eventually the life of like an entering med school student once I get in. Still gotta do a lot of stuff with that, but oh, and also a little thing, we're gonna be talking about neuroscience here a lot, so if you're into that, come here because I make it interesting and it really doesn't need to be made interesting because in my book it's interesting enough. Alright, so let's get into it. Today, oh my gosh guys, so I just had this idea like 5 minutes ago because I was looking online because I'm a nerd and I like to look up like journals and stuff, like scientific journals, articles, that sort of thing. And I was just looking up stuff because I was wondering, like, I was talking to some of my people in my neighborhood and last night, and we were talking about neuroscience stuff, and you know, I read certain articles that I'm interested about, but I really don't know what's happening in neuroscience as a whole. So I went on and I went to a neuroscience website, and it was like the top 10, top 15, top whatever neuroscience discoveries in 2018. Not 2019 yet because it's halfway through the year and there's not a list for that yet, but I wanted to see what the discoveries were last year, and this site did not disappoint. It is called neurosciencenews.com. I think it's a pretty cool site. I just found it, but it looks pretty cool. And this is the top 20 neuroscience news stories of 2018. But I'll try to do the best as I can to describe what these things are. Maybe I should go a little bit more nerdy and go with studies. What these studies are. Alright, but this list was really cool, and evidently these news stories are selected based on posts
that receive the most views on the website, and it's shared articles from Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, Google+, and other social networks, and some of these stories were also picked up on major news outlets.
So this is kind of stuff that's been out in the area for quite a while, but it's interesting to see what people think is cool in neuroscience, which, I mean, I think that's really interesting. I have read through some of these before, so I do know it's from that these sources are from good sources and not like random, studies that I don't know, random studies that, aren't really peer reviewed or anything. I made sure that these are peer reviewed. And if I made a mistake, don't kill me. But I'm just gonna read off what people evidently liked the most. But I think they're really cool too. So, with that in mind, let's get into it. Alright, so we got my nerdy glasses on. I actually don't need glasses. These are blue light glasses, which I guess are really nerdy because I used these when I was in research. When I was analyzing data, I'd use these because I'd be staring at a computer screen for hours and I'd get out of there and my head would be in intense pain because blue light, if you didn't know, hurts your eyes, and then that from then on goes to your brain. You can get headaches from it and like nausea and stuff like that. So I was being proactive and got blue light glasses. Now I've delved. Now that I've delved into my life stories on why I bought these glasses, alright, let's just get into what this video was actually about and what other people think is cool. So let's get into it. Let me just put these back on. Boop. Alright, so the first one is actually pretty interesting. Higher empathy people process music differently in the brain. So this is about like people with higher empathy differ from others in the way their brains process music. According to a study by researchers at Southern Methodist University, Dallas, and UCLA. Evidently, highly empathic people process familiar music with greater involvement of the brain's social circuitry, such as the areas activated when feeling empathy for others. They also seem to experience a greater degree of pleasure in listening, which is indicated by the increased activation of the reward system. Y'all, this is so interesting. I mean, like, so what they're essentially saying is, so empathetic people, it would make sense for them to have greater involvement with music because they can feel what the artist is, means by their music, what they can actually feel the emotions that went into the music, which I mean, I've experienced that before. Like, I'm really into music. Like, I go and when I listen to music, I get really into it, And it's just interesting that the circuitry, that their brain expresses it in the same way as they would like if they're talking to a person or if they feel like how they feel towards others. So they use music as if it was like they were talking to a person, which is really interesting. And I mean, this work, like, I don't know, I've just been reading through it. I'm not gonna like bore you with like this super like in-depth stuff of it because I need like a whole freaking day to figure that out. But this study was the first to find evidence supporting neural account of music empathy connection. Also, it was among the first to use functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, to explore how empathy affects the way we perceive music. So this study was the first to actually find evidence between music and empathy, which I think is really cool. And if you don't know what fMRI is, essentially it's like an MRI machine, but it will record brain activity in real time. It's so interesting to see that people can actually find evidence for it, because I'm pretty sure that there's been some studies out there with just observational studies where they take note of like people's people's reactions and stuff. I think there's been observational studies in the past about music and empathy and how different people feel about music and stuff and how they react to it. But I guess this is the first study that with actual hardcore evidence of how this works in the brain, which I think is really cool. But anyway, I digress. That was really cool. We're gonna go on to the next one because I don't want to make this an hour-long video. I could talk about this stuff all day, but we're just not gonna do that. But the next one is about how the brain experiences time. Now, evidently, in August of 2019, it isn't even August yet, guys. Wow, okay. 2018, but evidently these researchers found a network of cells in the entorhinal cortex. I don't know where that is, guys. Sorry, but like that appear to play a key role into putting experience into a temporal context. So you take an experience and then your brain then interprets it into like the context of like kind of temporal time, that sort of thing. But evidently they found the network of cells that do that. So that's pretty interesting. I just dropped my phone. That's kind of interesting that like a single like little area of cells can control your brain's like context of time, or interpretation of time. That's pretty cool. That's essentially what that one was over. So researchers have found area of the brain that controls that sort of thing within kind of like making experiences and turning that into a kind of time, like amount of time that we perceive as time, but it's actually just a coding thing within the brain, which I think is really interesting. But yeah, that was, the source of this was the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. I'll put these links down below if you want to read more about it, but I just think this stuff is pretty interesting, and I'm just going to summarize it for y'all. And if you want to learn more, go down and look at these links, because this stuff is interesting. The next one, and this one is interesting. A study tackles the neuroscience claims to have disproved free will. So, North Carolina State University, researchers published a quantitative review that called into question previous findings and the assumptions about neuroscience of free will. So, in essence, the study found those who opposed the concept of free will interpreted the results of their studies to support their personal position. So, evidently, the studies of free will in the realm of neuroscience, the participants are kind of biased in a way, and their bias leads to some unruly results. And the whole thing about free will is a little bit weird, and this kind of takes into the fact that you have to if you read papers, look at the results section and look at the actual data, because if it's all over the place, it's probably not right, but if it's if there's an obvious trend going on, then that means that there's probably something to it. But y'all gotta look at the charts and graphs and stuff. I know it's not really the most interesting stuff to look at, but this just proves that some people, I guess, can interpret things differently, interpret data differently to say one thing, which sometimes it really doesn't mean what they say. So this just kind of is saying that free will is hard to study because of people's preconceptions of, is preconceptions even a word? But notions of if there is free will and if there is not, and that's just kind of like a situational bias a little bit, just because people and their beliefs. If you're a devout, this kind of has to go with religion a little bit. If you believe something, then you will try your best to prove that it's true. So free will, I guess, is one of those things that they got to be really careful with, because there's just so much bias out there about it, and people kind of want to make it their way, because there's a lot of selfish people out there, and it's not a bad thing, but what you believe in is what you believe in. But anyway, that was pretty interesting. The next one is probiotic use is a link between brain fogginess and severe bloating, which is interesting because there is a link between your gut microbiome and your brain. So there's evidently some research out there. If y'all want to look this up, go ahead. But that there is research out there that different types of microbiomes in your gut can affect how your brain works. So kind of it can also affect if you have a more predisposition for depression, anxiety, mental illness, that sort of thing. Or it can kind of affect it. So you could get depression from your microbiome, in that sort of sense of that you got a predisposition for it. But I don't know. That's the tea. But go ahead and look that up if you want to learn more about it. I might do something over that later, but not today. Did you know that, I learned this from my immunology professor, but did you know that probiotics aren't really useful just because you swallow them and then your stomach acid immediately degrades any of the bacteria that were in the probiotics, so they're ultimately useless. Yeah, that's the tea. I'm too old to be saying that. A study in August of 2018 reported that probiotic use may not be as good for your digestive or brain health as previously assumed. Evidently, the study found higher levels of D-lactic acid in the small intestines of people taking probiotics. D-lactic acid is known to be temporarily toxic to brain cells, interfering with cognitive ability and our perception of time. However, researchers conclude probiotics do have benefits for those with gastroenteritis and other problems associated with lower levels of natural gut bacteria. So there is evidently a part of probiotics that's not exactly great for your brain. And if you don't know, like, lactic acid is usually like not really good for you. I don't want to get into like the biochemistry of it, but it's essentially what this says. Which I think they explain it really well, is that D-lactic acid is known for being temporarily toxic to brain cells, interfering with cognitive ability and our perception of time. So, like, you know when your brain's foggy and stuff, well, that's kind of the perception of time and stuff, and yeah, that's pretty interesting. So, probiotics, you gotta be careful with them, I guess. Yeah, they're getting more and more disproved by the day. Yikes. But obviously some people have to take them for like other reasons, but yeah, that's pretty interesting that it produces more of the D-lactic acid, and that can interfere with the with your brain cells. So that was what that one was. Evidently there's a new type of depression that was identified. During June, researchers from Hiroshima University reported that they had identified a new type of depression. Interesting. Can I stop dropping my phone? But anyway, the study revealed that a protein, RGS8, controls the MCHR1 hormone receptor, and that receptor helps regulate sleep and mood responses. And evidently, there was an excess of RGS8 that resulted in more depressive behaviors in mice. So these researchers believed that the findings may help to explain why patients are resistant to current antidepressants. And that's really interesting, because neuroscience is not just about what happens in the brain. It also is about essentially everything that the human body does is associated with the brain. So like immune systems, you can have immune disorders and that can affect your brain. You can your immune system, if you have chronic pain, sometimes you get inflammation, and that can in turn cause your brain to essentially just think you're in pain all the time, that sort of thing. It's just really interesting how they're finding new proteins that could explain why people with depression sometimes can't take medicines, and they think they're resistant to medicines. But with this stuff in mind, y'all, they can make new, improved, medicines that can help people. And that's what I love about neuroscience. And what I want to do when I, become a doctor and stuff, is I want to have a private practice that has a research lab involved with it. So if we get patients like this, we can figure out different kinds of therapies for them, on site, I mean, it may take a year or something, but we could figure it out, and so we don't just give them a one-size-fits-all treatment, which I think that's really cool, because I've been through some stuff before, and let's just say some medicines are just not good for certain things, and it's just a lot of work to keep on going through that whole thing of trying to find new medicines and just being disappointed every time, But, I mean, now that they've found this protein, they can make, they can make new medicine for it, and that's really cool that they've found that. So this one is about immune system activation in newborns. that may affect the developing brain. So, the McLean Hospital researchers revealed in January that the immune system activation, which occurs as a result of infection shortly after birth, may cause neurodevelopmental disorders in children. The study reported a brief activation of the immune system within days of birth can cause persistent alterations in sleep patterns concurrent with an increase of epilepsy-like brain activity. The study also adds that to a growing body of evidence that ties early immune system activation caused by bacterial or viral infections to ASD and other neurodevelopmental disorders. So that's interesting. So like, I think what it's saying is if a child gets, sick right after birth really early and the immune system has to get activated, it could cause, a whole bunch of bad stuff in the brain and could affect the child later on in life. Which kind of makes sense, I guess. Like I said earlier about chronic pain and the immune system with inflammation and stuff, I guess that could increase the chances of inflammation in the brain, I guess, and could then mess up the brain later on in life, which is interesting. The real you is a myth. How well if I can freaking talk, how well we know our real selves may be under question. According to a study released in September, research reported our actual identity is often not a true representation of who we really are. Whoa. As we don't access all and use all available memories when creating a personal narrative. Subconsciously, we may pick and choose what we actually remember when we create our personal narrative. The study concludes that we may constantly create false memories to help us achieve the identity we want. That's kind of true, I mean, sometimes, like, if you go through, like, kind of like an event in your life that's just kind of, not good or something, that you might block that out and might not, go off that memory, or vice versa, you might go off that memory and that might be your personality, because if you think about it, if anyone remembered all their memories at, like, one time, you'd be crazy, because you can't just go off of all your memories, because, like, your brain can't handle that, and your personality would just be really weird, probably. So, I mean, that pretty much makes sense. But the whole title, The Real You is a Myth, yeah, that kind of caught me off guard. But, yeah, I mean, that's pretty logical. Like, you subconsciously pick what memories to go off of your personal narrative. And this kind of reminds me of the show Westworld. Y'all, if you need a show to watch, go watch Westworld on HBO. Oh my gosh, I kind of compare it to Game of Thrones, but it's like Game of Thrones, but like psychological, I've been watching it with my dad recently, and it's honestly like the most interesting show. Your mind will be blown every single episode. It's great. That's not sponsored. But yeah, go watch it if you need a show to watch. But this is kind of like, it kind of plays off of this study a little bit, so that's pretty interesting. Leg exercise is critical to brain and nervous system health. A groundbreaking study released in May revealed weight-bearing leg exercise may be the key to both brain and nervous system health. The study found in leg exercises help send signals to the brain that could be vital for the production of healthy neurons. Cool. I really don't have anything to add to that, but cool. I'm not really going to go read into that right now because I'd go on another tangent again, like the first one. But yeah, again, I'll leave the link down below if you want to read it. Let's see. Oh, there we go. This is the one for me. How brains of doers differ from those of procrastinators. A neuroimaging study performed by researchers at Ruhr-Universität Bochum, I think that's like a German university, identified neurobiological differences in the brain of those who procrastinate and those who are more motivated. The study found that people who procrastinate tend to have larger amygdalas, Additionally, the connection between the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, not circuit, and the amygdala is less pronounced in those in doers. So that's pretty interesting. There's actually a difference in brain structure of procrastinators and doers, and if they saw my brain, yikes. Although I do digress, I procrastinate, but like I also do stuff, so I don't know what my brain would look like. It would probably, I don't know. It would be nice to know if I was like predominantly a procrastinator, predominantly a doer, so maybe I could like, know why I do things like I do. But you gotta get a brain scan for that. But evidently, this is just saying that they found connections between the amygdala and the dorsal anterior cingulate circuit. Why do I keep on saying circuit? Cortex. And they found differences within the brains of procrastinators and doers, which is really interesting. Oh, this one's interesting. I actually read about this earlier. Eye movements take the edge off traumatic memories. So a study published in the Journal of Neuroscience, pretty cool stuff if you want to read it. That's like the main shebang for neuroscience nerds. But back in September, they reported that the controversial psychotherapy technique, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, may be a useful tool in suppressing traumatic memories. Researchers reported that EMDR helped suppress fear-related amygdala activities during a recall of traumatic events and memories. They suggest that EMDR has the potential to recode the emotional content of a traumatic memory. Oh, that would be really good for PTSD. I know they were already starting to do that for PTSD people and stuff, and that would be nice for people with PTSD or just traumatic memories in general to have some relief in that, because if you have a traumatic memory, that's kind of a cornerstone of your personality there, and it's just not a thing that you want to keep thinking about, So I think that's really cool that they've figured out that does work for traumatic memories. Oh, there we go. Meditation and breathing exercises can sharpen your mind. Evidently, back in May, researchers reported controlled breathing, a key element of meditation, can help enhance attention and improve overall brain health. The study found controlled breathing directly affects the noradrenaline levels in the brain, helping to reduce stress and improve focus. Now, this is actually pretty interesting because I've seen a lot of stuff about this. There's been a lot of controversy over it to see if it actually does stuff and to help you. I know there's biofeedback kind of sensors that can see while you're meditating, what your brain does while you're meditating, and you can kind of, fix your meditation, I guess. And I was actually thinking about getting one of those to record stuff for EEG kind of data for different tasks, but it's $300 and I'm a poor college student. So once I get the money, I'll probably get that. But yeah, I've been looking for that because I really want to do it because I'm a nerd. But anyway, some people will say with the meditation and breathing exercises, it's just a bunch of hooey and stuff. It's not really, proven. But I guess now it's kind of proven because it controlled noradrenaline levels in the brain, and it can help you reduce stress and improve focus, which was what this study kind of found. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. And there's another one about depression, but yeah, that looks pretty complex to explain, so I might do a separate video on that. So, anyway, that was, I don't know how many that was, but that was just some top relatively searched and liked studies of 2018 in neuroscience. If you liked that sort of thing where I just read off and give my opinions and my input on some of these studies, then go ahead and leave a like down below. If you liked what I did here today, if you like me in general, please subscribe. And I'll probably be doing more stuff like this. I just bought actually 2 Jeffree Star Cosmetics mystery boxes, so I'm probably gonna do an unboxing with that. I do like makeup. There's gonna be some stuff like that on this channel because I can't just keep doing like vlogs over and over and over again about like my life. So because I'm not really that interesting of a person, but that will probably be up within the next week or 2 whenever I get it. Sometimes it takes a while to get these, but I'll probably put that up. I have some interesting stuff coming up that I'm thinking about, and I don't know, I just have some stuff that I'm thinking about. Also, I might do a new apartment tour, because I got a new apartment back in my college, and I just kind of slightly moved into it now. I gotta decorate it still, but I got all my furniture and stuff in it. So I might do a new apartment tour. I don't know. I gotta ask my roommate if she's down for that or not. But I got a lot of things coming up. So give me a subscribe if you want to see more of this. If you want to see what I do next. I'm not the best YouTuber yet, but please comment down below if you want to see more of this. If you want to have me stop rambling so much at the end, because I've just realized I'm kind of doing that now. Yeah, leave a comment down below if you liked it, if what was interesting to you. There we go. Let's ask the question, what was interesting to you in this whole freaking study kind of thing? Please subscribe, like it, click that little bell button, and I'll see y'all nerds later. Bye.